And it's, this is who I am, so this is what I do. It can't be nuanced. It has to be very, very tactical. It has to be very quantifiable. Well, then it's going to require me to be this person. Confidence is built off of the micro commitments that I keep to myself.
Personal development turned purpose into a commodity.
Most people aren't afraid of failure. What we're actually afraid of is that we would succeed.
You don't think yourself into a new reality. You act your way into a new way of being.
The problem that so many find themselves in is, we call it the law of the lid. Too much success, because you don't want your friends thinking, well, he thinks he's better than me. Oh, you've made it now. Oh, you're that guy.
If you're stuck, if you're that person, the first thing that you do is you answer the question. All right, Cody, your bio says that you work privately with high capacity, high visibility leaders, founders, artists, and public figures to steward success without sacrificing your soul.
Yeah.
That feels like a bio of somebody who has lived some life, probably has some lessons that they've learned, and they want to help people not make the same mistakes that they did. So you really are, in a lot of ways, a coach, a mentor to high capacity people. I want to get into your story, and I want to get into your heart for why you're doing what you're doing now. But can we just step back for a second and just talk about like the coaching world?
Sure.
I have a problem. I have an issue with like the current climate of the coaching world. And let me just say this. I say this to people all the time. You need a counselor for your past and a coach for your future.
Sure.
So I believe in mentorship more than probably most people. I have a high value for it. But I feel like we're in this world where coaching now has a bad name. Because when you see coaching, you think of, at least I think of, individuals that maybe like couldn't have success on their own, so they learned how to sell a program, rather than like doing the thing. I sat down with I had a girl in her mid-20s, 25, 26, ask if I could meet. She wanted to pick my brain for some strategies, for some business stuff she's doing. And so we met at our little coffee shop here at our church. And I said, so what's going on? She goes, well, I'm trying to build my business, but I'm not sure how to get it going, how to get clients, and I'm kind of feeling stuck and da-da-da. I said, okay, well, what is your business? She goes, oh, I'm a life coach. And I go, oh. She goes, yeah, I'm certified. And I go, really? It's like, how old are you? She goes, 25. I said, you're a certified life coach? She said, yeah. I said, how do you do that? Like, how does that become a thing? And she's like, oh, it's a 2-day program down in LA. Oh. Like, you just go down, it's like Friday, Saturday, and then you leave Saturday night with your certificate. Mm-hmm. So I'm a life coach. And no shade on this girl. Like, I think her heart was in the right place. But then as I dug deeper into her conversation, she was like living in her parents' basement, like had no money to her name, was still trying to figure out life herself. And I just feel like I was laughing because I'm like, to a lot of people, that is a version of a life coach these days, is someone. Sure. You are at a different level than that. What differentiates coaches these days? And how does somebody even, if we have a value for coaching, how does somebody even vet the right person to work with?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. So one, I think you look at the fruit, right? And I think that's the way that we stabilize a lot of our decisions, whether we're looking for a pastor, we're looking for a partner, we're looking for somebody to walk alongside us as a mentor or a coach. I mean, it is, what is the fruit in their life? I mean, I can tell you, I got into ministry full time just to say that I think so many times we kind of do the best. We're like David with some stones. So we're trying to do the best with what's in our hand. Mm-hmm. When I got into ministry full time when I was 19. So I was in pastoral ministry occupationally for 13 years. For those of you watching, non-denominational, of course.
Thank you for clarifying.
Clearly. For our viewers. Yeah, clearly. Yeah, raised Baptist and that kind of.
He's actually a Quaker.
Yeah, but I can remember, when I was in my early 20s and I was sitting with people in a hospital room as their loved ones were passing. And I had every perfect, polished prayer for you. I had everything by the book of what I was supposed to say, everything that I was taught, everything that I had learned to communicate. The only thing that I didn't have was the seasoning of actual life to be able to back that up. So it wasn't that the prayers were hollow. It wasn't that the intention wasn't there. It wasn't until, much later when I started to actually walk through a substantial period of loss. This was, 2015, 2016, when, I went through a divorce with my son's mom. And in the midst of that, lost, 8 family members and close friends, an 18-month-old niece, a 19-year-old sister, a sister-in-law, a best friend, a mentor, 3 pastor friends, an aunt. So that may be more than what I count. So it wasn't until you start walking through that and you start to recognize, man, I really missed it. I think one of the greatest gifts that we give someone is not in an answer that we communicate, but in just being able to sit with someone in silence. And, so you said earlier, you're a coach and you're a mentor to these people. And true, yes, I am. And I would also say that I believe I'm just now getting into the place where it's not occupational anymore, but I'm more a pastor now.
Wow.
Than I've ever been. One, because, social media has become a really great platform. And so I always say that the pulpit was always preparation for the platform that God had prepared, which you'll find I use a lot of alliteration. You can take me out of the pulpit, but it's still in there.
Still here.
We're all cut by the same cloth.
Yeah.
But it was really in that season of being stripped down to nothing. There's a beautiful song by Nicole Nordman, and there's a line in there that says, she's talking about the song's called The Unmaking, and I think the line in the chorus is like, standing in this rubble, I can see the stars. And so I think sometimes it takes the breaking down of all the things that you had built that were maybe a facade or a projection of what you think people wanted from you, or again, doing the best with what was in your hands, recognizing that you can do all the things with all the right intentions and still miss it. That you create a humility and an empathy and a way of walking with people, and a way of not necessarily needing to have all the right answers, but being able to ask more thought-filled questions and being able to sit in that. And I think when you're younger, and we talk about the coaching industry or the mentorship industry, I think that there's just a seasoning that hasn't taken place yet, a seasoning of marriage or of loss or of parenting or in the business world of actually building something outside of the infrastructure that you're currently building inside of a coaching program. That it's just like going to the gym. It's just time and reps.
Right.
And I think that's the differentiator.
Right.
And, somebody that goes to the gym frequently, you're going to see the fruit of that in the way that they present themselves, in the body that they've created. Somebody that has a healthy marriage that's been seasoned over time, you're going to see that in the way that they serve one another, and the humility that they exercise towards one another, the genuine love that they have for one another. You see that in parenting as well. You see that in business and in acumen and the way someone communicates. And so, if I were saying anything to anyone about vetting, it is to look at the fruit and to not always take social media or marketing at face value, because everyone always puts their best foot forward. And it's easy to spin a narrative. It's easy to create a facade and a conversation that you get to navigate. So make sure that you're asking good questions, the same questions that I would hope you would ask if you're younger and you're looking to marry someone, or you're looking to step into a position. Like, asking the right questions is invaluable.
Yeah, and I don't mean to I don't mean to harp on all coaches. You know,
Sure.
that's not
Yeah.
my agenda, but I do think that there's an aspect of, you know, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, man, I was just trying to build my coaching program. And thanks for the discouragement, Cody. I'm not trying to do that, but I am trying to step back and go, have you lived a life so far where you can walk the walk and talk the talk, and you have the experience to truly help somebody? Because I think at the end of the day, coaching and mentorship is something everybody needs.
Absolutely.
It's not something that some people need. I love the fact that you say, I work with high capacity people. What would you say from what you're doing in your program? Maybe walk us through a little bit about like what you've built. So you've gone through this journey, divorce, ministry, into where you're at now, which just feels like more like pastoring than it ever has, which I think is really cool because I don't think pastoring is really a title.
Sure.
I think it's
I believe we're all called
it's
the
a function.
pastor.
Yeah, 100%.
I believe we're all called the pastor.
100%. But I'd love to understand when you say high capacity, what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
You know, what's the program look like a little bit? And you don't have to give me specifics about who you're working with, but I would love, you know, some dirt on some. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I did bring a list.
We could just go through who any names that we might know.
Yeah. You know, when I say high capacity and high vision, these are men who, for all intents and purposes, professionally, for the most part, know what they're called to, or have been on the backside of building something that we would call relatively impressive. So typically these are going to be guys who are of high influence, or men who have built infrastructure in the business world that navigates north of 7 and 8 figures. So I say that to say, like, we're not really working with beginners. I'm not the guy who you come to and, you know, I'm going to sell you a course on how to build your first business. You know, I'm a part of multiple organizations and multiple companies, as, you know, sit on the board of a couple, and then, you know, I'm partnering in a few, and an investor in others, and then, you know, do the mentorship. But these are guys who, by all extensive purposes, are successful front-facing. You know, the problem for a lot of us is we get into infrastructure and we get into building something because at the moment, maybe we don't necessarily know what we want, but we think we know what we want life to look like based off of what we see from other people. And in the midst of that, the problem is if you're not seasoned in your walk with God, if you're not seasoned in being able to discern and hear that voice, well, then the problem is you start to climb a mountain that maybe was never yours to climb in the first place. And so then what happens when you get to the top? And who does that require you to become? And for so many men, they were just never given a roadmap on what that discipline looks like, on what actual fulfillment looks like. You know, I'm in my 40s. And
you look great, by the way.
I'll give you my skin routine later.
We'll go over that later.
Yeah. And so, you know, we were raised in a culture where, especially for me, I'm from Oklahoma, and you'll hear that in my voice. And the whole narrative was, we're Jeffersons, we work hard. We outwork anybody. We're there first and we leave last. And so everything becomes this benchmark of working hard. But outside of that, it's never, well, how do you navigate your emotional experience? What does being a believer actually look like as an adult? What does that mean to steward that inside of your family? What does it mean, especially the way that culture has shifted and changed with, you know, women in workplace and taking on, you know, far more professional roles, and even the conversation culturally of the balance of feminine and masculine. How do you lead without being controlling or oppressive? How do you learn to navigate your emotional experience so we're not flying off the handle like our dads did? How do you create a safe, nurturing environment for your kids? What do you do for fun? Like, what brings you life? Yes, you've built this thing. Is it what you actually want? And, you know, so many men will build something impressive only to tear it down. So either tear the company down or they tear their family down.
Yeah.
Not because, I don't believe it's because they want to. I believe it's because we've just been conditioned to fight.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned to be addicted to the climb. And that's okay. but we just have to recognize that we're climbers. And so what does that mean, and what are those implications? So, we ask a question often, which is, what needs to die in me to become the man that I'm called to be?
Wow.
Which means then we have to sit down and define, what is that man? If you say you want to be a loving, present husband, but you're like me and your parents were divorced when you were, knee high to a pig's eye, Oklahoma. And, and so you never understood that frame. Well, now I have to define it. What is that for me? How do I show up? What do I carry on in terms of the disciplines and the work ethic and the habit structure from the men in my life that came before me? What do I want to continue? And also, what do I say, that really wasn't useful, and I learned it, and I find myself repeating those patterns. But if I'm being honest with myself, and then I get somebody like me in front of me telling me the truth, because you can be honest with yourself and still not be telling the truth.
Yep.
Then what does that look like? And who am I required to become? And the same with being a loving, present father, or even building large infrastructure. I work with a lot of guys in blue collar, and for the most part, what happens is they start out in a trade, and then something happens with the boss, and they're like, I can do this. Mm-hmm. I've got this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go start this. And so then they get a team under them, but they don't understand, oh man, now I have to know marketing, I have to know sales, I have to know systems, I have to know process, I have to know finance, I need to know how to be a leader. And so they'll actually cap themselves, not because they're not capable, but because we'll always choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. And so it's like, I'm just going to stay here because at least it's familiar. It may not be what I actually want,
but it's familiar.
But I don't know. Yep. And I don't know how to steward this effectively so that on the backside of the growth, I can actually sustain it long term. Who does that require me to be? Who's that separate me from? What does that pull me towards? What am I going to have to lay down? What am I going to have to gain?
So stop right there, because that is where I think the majority of people live. Mm-hmm. And whether you're honest with yourself or not, there's some people that are just like, yeah, I feel scared. Mm-hmm. I think I have dreams. I have aspirations. I have things that I want to do. I have talents that I want to see used. I want my life to have impact. But we hold on to familiar because we're scared. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times the reason that we also do that is because we either A, don't have somebody in our life to call that out.
Sure.
Or B, we don't have the tools or the know-how of actually how to get ourselves out of that familiar. Mm-hmm. What would you say to that person?
Yeah. I mean, so essentially that's what I do, right? Is I just help build maps. And we have a very simple phrase that navigates everything we do. It navigates everything that I do on a daily basis. And it's, this is who I am, so this is what I do. And so if we go back to, this is what I say that I want, I have to get very, very clear on that, right? It can't be nuanced. It has to be very, very tactical, has to be very quantifiable. This is what I want, and this is what I want life to look like, and this is why. Okay. Well, then it's going to require me to be this person. And that may be outside of the discipline practices that I have now. It may be so far out of the mindset that I have right now. But what I do know is that confidence is built off of the micro commitments that I keep to myself. And so if I say in each bracket of life, because listen, you can go into business and you can make a lot of money. I work with a lot of these guys. Mm-hmm. And you can completely bankrupt your entire family and your spiritual walk and your own level of fulfillment. So congratulations, you're broke with money. And on the flip side, you can have all of these witty ideas and creative inventions and ways in which you want to infiltrate marketplace, but you just don't know where to start. And so you just settle and you become apathetic and frustrated. And so maybe you're a great dad and a great husband, but on the backside of that, you feel empty because you know there's something more inside of you, but you just don't know where to go to get it.
So say that again. If you're stuck, if you're that person, the first thing that you do is you answer the question.
What do I want?
What do I want?
And why?
And why?
And on the backside of that, okay, well then who's that going to require me to become? I have found that most people aren't afraid of failure because we've all failed. Mm-hmm. We know what that mm-hmm. feels like. what we're actually afraid of is that we would succeed, and who that would require us to become, and what that would tie us to, and the level of discipline that that would create in our lives that we can't go backwards on. And especially if you're like me and you come from a small town, and no one does, and I still live in that same small town. So anybody that tells you got to move somewhere so that you can be successful in your life, I'm going to call hogwash on that, because you couldn't pay me enough money to move out of Oklahoma. It's where my family is. It's where my closest relationships are. And there's a simpleness to the way of life where we're not having to, keep up with the Joneses and keep moving facades forward. We just get to live very simply and humbly, and we get to serve people. And it's a beautiful experience. The problem that so many, find themselves in is we call it the law of the lid. And so if you're still hanging out, and so I speak mostly to men because I work mostly with men. I only know how to be a man. I can't tell a woman how to be a woman. That would be mansplaining something that's not mine to mansplain. So what
Thanks
I can
for clarifying that for all of us.
So I can say that when you're hanging out with the same guys that you've been hanging out with since high school, and you're going to the same bar, cheers, everybody knows your name, drinking the same thing you've always been drinking. This isn't an anti-alcohol push. It's just, I'm saying if you keep committing to the same habits, what happens is you don't want to reach a point of too much success, because you don't want your friends thinking, well, he thinks he's better than me. Oh, you've made it now. Oh, you're that guy. And so you'll limit yourself, which we call the law of the lid, because I don't want to overachieve, because I don't want to leave anybody behind. And I don't want anyone to ever think that I think that I'm better than them, which is why it's so important that you put yourself in the right rooms. When we met in person for the first time, it was at an event. Mm-hmm. And I believe, was it in Vegas? Mm-hmm. I believe. I was hosting a different event and came over and saw you because I had some space in my day. Yeah. And because we had connected through social media, I believe.
I found you because I saw one of your posts, and you were in a living room teaching a bunch of men. Mm-hmm. And I was in a season of frustration with this, because you and I are very similar in that we both work with people. We both get a lot of phone calls from people saying, "Hey, can you help me think through this, or strategize through this, or work through whatever scenario or circumstance." I think we're both creative, strategic thinkers that actually have a value for common sense.
Sure.
And I was in a season where I was trying to find people that I related to. And I was frustrated because I wasn't finding that online. It was just, like I said, people that were wanting to take my money and put me into their program that they haven't actually lived out their own life. And when I saw your post, I remember you were talking about the balance of family in entrepreneurship and business. And you said it with authority. And I marked it. I saved it. I didn't even reach out to you at that point. But when you were walking across in Vegas at the event, I saw your skinny jeans, and I knew instantly who you were. Yeah. With those boots, I was like, I recognize that dude. Yeah.
Oh, the boots. Shout out to Dustin Bowen.
There you go. Yeah. Are they your sponsor yet, man? Because how many Bowens do you have?
One. I got a custom pair for every day of the week. But I'll tell you this, as somebody who, is in product and apparel. One of my best friends, Tip Frank, and I have Spiritual World Tour. All of my leather jackets are Master Supply. All of my boots are Bowen. There's something about celebrating and building camaraderie and supporting small business and supporting others who take so much pride in their craft. I happily buy my boots. Yes. I happily support.
I love those boots. Those were good boots. Don't get me wrong. I'm not mocking him. I want to be like you.
I've got my rattlesnakes on right now
in ways that I just can't. I just can't get away with it. My girls, I have 5 daughters. They don't let me get away with it.
Well, that's fair.
They just don't. But I saw you and you spoke with authority. Yeah. And you were somebody who was speaking through experience. And that was really what I was drawn to. So when I saw you walk in at this event, it was an easy conversation. You and I became fast friends very quickly.
Yeah, real quick.
And in a lot of ways, man, you were an answer to prayer. at that season, because I was in a space where I was like, who's out there doing this? So
well, and I appreciate you saying that. One of the things for me, I think what works for me, I can only speak for myself, my background in ministry and pushing into the development space and the coaching space and then the business infrastructure space as a whole, what I found very, very quickly that is still very grieving to me is that in business, which I do fully understand and respect, but specifically in the development space and in the coaching space, everything is so transactional.
mm-hmm.
And, if everything is leading to a sale and, my social media does pretty well. I receive probably, 150 to 200 messages a day from people and from men and women alike. A lot of women coming to talk about, relational stuff with their husbands. A lot of men coming to talk about, emotional capacity and even just the stress and pressures of building, and a lot on spiritual conversations. And so I made a deal with God, not that God has wanted to make a deal with, but in my head,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
And the conversation was, if I ever get what my grandpa would call too big for my britches, if I ever get to a place where I'm too cool or too busy to not personally answer every single message, where I have to have a VA do it or
Mm-hmm.
somebody else, or it's, whatever. I feel like I need to sit at the VIP table at a conference and you need to pay more money to be able to sit at my table, which is how all of these things work.
Right.
He can just take it all away.
Right.
I was good as a pastor making 30 grand a year. And, by the grace of God, we're past that. But I always want to sit with people.
Yeah.
I feel like, if somebody comes to an event or somebody has the courage to message me because life is broken right now, I remember being in that spot. And I remember reaching out to so many who would not give me any straight answers. They just wanted a transaction. And I respect it. I understand it. But if I can sow into people, for me, success won't be, the amount of money in the bank account when I pass. It is like, for me, it's a vision of standing room only in a church with a line wrapped around of people who just want to come shake my boy's hands and say, I never met your dad in person, but he saved my marriage and he helped my husband, or he helped me, or he helped me connect with my wife or my kids. He helped me not throw everything away. He helped me get sober. He helped me find God again. And you can't do that if everything is transactional.
I think what's so profound about what you're saying in my beef, if you will, with coaches is that's really it. It's actually less about coaching. If that's what's in your heart, you want to lead, you want to mentor, you want to go after it, but don't make it transactional.
Yeah. No, these are
don't make it about the program.
Yeah. And respectfully, there's something to be said about, being paid for a service.
Sure.
I'm not the most expensive, but I'm certainly not the least expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on the higher end.
Yeah.
And on the backside of that, have helped to build 9-figure companies and 8-figure companies and 7-figure companies. And so there's fruit. And also, I'm always going to, even if it's a message that's 60 to 120 seconds, I'm always going to be a pastor. That's never going to, and I think I tried to run from that. I think that sometimes for those of us who have that, it's a heavy weight. It's a heavy empathetic weight to carry. And I think for so many, you pull out of that and you create the transaction almost to self-insulate or protect yourself. Which is why you need mentors and you need pastors and people in your life to help you stay grounded and stay focused and stay balanced. One, so you don't get in over your skis but 2, so you don't emotionally burn yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go back to the type of people that you work with. I think you explained that really well. High capacity, high achievers. You're essentially saying like, I don't really work with a lot of startups per se.
No. We've got, I've got something coming out that is going to be very, very low ticket, and it's going to be a paid community. The only reason is because you pay attention to what you pay for. But again, another one of my grievances is, where is something that people are just looking to move their lives forward, get out of the rut, get out of the place that they've always been. They want to develop a deeper relationship with God. They want to develop a healthier marriage. They want to learn how to communicate effectively and work through some of the trauma, because listen, we all have trauma, and we all have things that have happened to us or through us or by us as a result of the ways that we were raised or things we experienced. And that helps to create a conversation, but it's not clearance. We have to be able to move through it, because if we don't, we'll bleed on people that never cut us. And if we don't transform the trauma, we transmit it to the people we love the most. And so building something for men and women, because again, yes, so many that resonate with my message are not one-to-one clients. But we could have something for them.
Like a community.
Absolutely.
Type piece. I'm such a big fan of like communities or group coaching, because I think people in the room ask questions that maybe other people wouldn't know to ask. And so you sit there and you get the nuggets of wisdom because somebody else had the insight. I think it's powerful. I think community, I'm a really big fan of, I think a lot of times we overlook that, that aspect of mentorship.
Well, because we're not meant to do this life alone, but we're a culture and a community that we are so desperate to be known, but we'll settle every day for being seen. And we'll place the perfect pictures and we'll create a facade, and we'll be frustrated that nobody understands, but we don't actually ever give them the capacity to understand us, because at the end of the day, we're all afraid of the same thing. And that's, if you knew me, you wouldn't actually love me. And so can we create a space where, hey, not only are you seen, but you're fully known and you're fully loved, and you're loved enough that we're not going to let you stay in your pain.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I think for a lot of people that are in that phase, let's say, of maybe not knowing how to get out of the familiar, but they want to, I think what you just said as far as, first calling it out, I think that's massive. But I also think that there's something that you've probably gotten a front row seat to that a lot of people aren't aware of. And that's the simple fact that I think we have this assumption that high level, high capacity, successful, wealthy people, like they all of the problems that sit here don't sit here.
Right.
If I could only reach that point of success, then I wouldn't have all the problems that I have. You probably have a front row seat to say, yeah, that's actually not true.
No, that's the very reason I do what I do, because you get to that place, and there's an old Dan Seals song that's everything that glitters is not gold. And that's it. It's you get to this place and you think it's going to solve all of your traumas and issues and frustrations. No, money just solves money problems.
Yep.
And make no mistake, I believe that everyone should make as much money as they possibly can, because it's the only way that we can be truly generous with our time, and truly generous with our resources. Money doesn't solve all your problems, but being broke doesn't solve any.
Right.
But sometimes we'll stand on that, and we'll use it as a baseline mechanism of defense and deflection as to why we're not going after the things that we know that we're called to. And so I'm here to tell you, if you're listening or watching this, that if there are things that have been placed inside of your heart, if there are passions, if you're sitting on talent, we read about this in Matthew, where the gentleman buries his one talent. It was never about the amount. It was, you just weren't. It wasn't, why didn't you multiply this 20 times? It was never that. It was never the conversation of why didn't you just do more with it? It was, hey, no, why didn't you just steward this And stewardship can look a lot of different ways. It can be getting involved in your local church. It can be getting involved in the school system. It can just be taking ownership of your home again. Because if not, you find yourself just working through the same patterns.
It seems like a lot of what you do is help people redefine success.
My tagline is success inspired by simpler times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, because I think that is probably one of the most prominent things people fail to do is step back in what is your version of success? What does that actually look like? And
if you had no external markers.
Yes.
If you unfollowed everyone.
Yes.
What does success actually mean? Because we're guaranteed one thing, and that is that we are all going back to the dirt. Every single one of us.
Yep.
And it is not as long as you think. Even with everything that's going on right now culturally, and there's a lot happening in a multitude of countries, and there's a lot of unknowns and ambiguity, and there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of propagated fear.
Yep.
And in the midst of that, guess what? Your life is still very, very short. It does have a checkpoint where you check out. And so again, there's the poem, like, what will you do with this one crazy precious life?
I'm just pulling out my phone because I'm reminded of a major mission and value of talents.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast, the entire brand, is what does it look like at the end of your life to say I lived a successful life? Like, what does success look like in that capacity? It's very much from the parable of talents, and that idea of like, we've got to have movement to our lives. And I think movement brings clarity
Sure.
in really significant ways. But I look at that in years ago, there was a pastor, Dick Iverson, who built incredible church, like legacy. Like I would use the word legacy to talk about him. Like he's just, if you look at the amount of fruit from his life and the people that he impacted, influenced, and mentored, and he mentored my dad at one point, and my dad had walked away from the Lord for years and went through this whole up and down journey of trying to figure out who he was and what was God's call in his life. And he said, for me, son, and I just love when any legend calls you son.
Sure.
You're like, yes. He said it's to hear those words, well done, good and faithful servant. But he took it a step further, and he just said, you have to understand those words, well done, good and faithful servant. Like, what does that actually mean? And so he would take it a step further and break it down and say, well done. What does well done mean? It means that I gave excellence to everything that God put in my hand. Like I pursued that excellence, faithful, integrity. What does it look like to walk out with excellence, integrity, and then servanthood, which is just humility. And he broke this down for me in such a way that was so profound. I was a young kid, and I've held on to that. I have it written down in my phone. It's something that I reference back to all the time, because I think at the core of it, the best principles, the best advice, the best stories, the best scriptures, it all comes from the mundane.
It does.
And that's a big part of your message too. So I'd love for you to just unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So I say that we write off the miraculous in our lives every single day because it's become mundane to us.
Say that again. Look at the camera. Say that again to the camera.
We often miss the miraculous in our lives because we write it off as mundane.
Poof.
The small things.
So powerful.
The small things, that I have a wife that believes in me, that champions me.
Is there anything better?
That is so peaceful
Yeah.
in my walk. And I was someone for a lot of my life didn't believe that I deserved peace because I didn't see it. And so, when you grow up in certain chaotic environments to any capacity, you learn from a very early age that sort of your role, which was placed on you, was to create peace in chaos. And so then your whole idea of how you frame love is I'm only worth loving if I'm putting out a fire. And so then we get into relationships, and it's no wonder that we create chaos inside of our relationships just to temper it down, because
It's where we get our value.
that's where our value comes from. And for me to have a wife that was so patient for me to learn that, and so grace-filled to where now we have this incredibly peace-filled life and marriage, that in the mornings my son will come down because he wakes up super early like me, and he'll just want to cuddle on the couch at 11 years old. He'll just want to sit in my arms. You know, my birthday was earlier this week, and my son got a 3D printer for Christmas. And so he found the schematic and he created this lion for me, this gold lion head that now sits in my office. And he gave it to me at wrestling practice on Monday night. And I had stepped outside for a couple seconds because I needed to take a call with, I'm a part of a power company, and we had a very, very large client, and we needed to get some stuff out for them. And a dad overheard my conversation, and it's not a conversation most have where I'm from. And so we sit back down, and he's like, okay, what
was that
what
about?
do you do? And so I'm walking through it. He's like, so are you rich? and I pulled out that lion head, and I said, you know, my son made this for me.
It's so beautiful.
I'm the richest man in this room, but it doesn't have anything to do with what's in my account.
Get that phone call.
Money and all of those things, they're a great marker that you are efficient and prominent in stewarding the talents that God has given you and continuing to multiply those. Money is a magnifier, but it is one metric. And I think so many times that is the superficial way that we equate someone to success.
Right.
Because then he asked me, he's like, well, I mean, think you could own like a supercar? I'm like, sure. He's like, well, then why do you drive that? I drive a 95 Power Stroke, by the way, 7.3 liter for all you guys watching. Best motor ever made by Ford.
Absolutely.
And he's like, well, then why do you drive that? And I said, well, my grandfather was, I'm very emotional on this podcast.
You're good, man.
My grandfather was my hero. And he drove a Ford. My dad, who's also a hero, drove a Ford. And same dash cluster, same color interior. So every time that I get in that truck, I'm reminded of who I am. I'm reminded of where I come from. I'm reminded of what my name means because I was given a name. I'm reminded to steward that name effectively. I'm reminded that the men who've gone before me are in my corner. My grandfather passed in 2013, but every morning I get to talk to him and I get to touch that dash and I get to say, today's another day. We get to wring everything out of life.
Come on.
And I'm going to make you proud. That's why. Because some things money doesn't buy. And I said, and truth be told, like, if I did drive that, would that make you respect me more? He's like, no, you're a great dad. Your co-parenting relationship, I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
You know, Stetson's sisters, my son's name's Stetson, Oklahoma. And his sisters, you know, will come they just jump on me and, you know, their kids are like our kids. And that makes me the richest man in any room. And so if we can catch that, your eternity has been paid for in full. We already know how the story ends. You don't fight for victory, you fight from it. When you recognize that, and when you can deal with the inner things that, you know, in the church we'll call them inner demons, you know, but really, if you can deal with the internal struggle of what it is to genuinely love yourself and to step into who God has called you to be, well, then all of that distress that comes from building or creating infrastructure or going after something and having the ambition and the gall to do it, the stones to do it, that distress becomes eustress. It becomes the same the same kind of stress that is released when you work out, right? Working out's tough.
Yep.
But it releases these endorphins, and you
Yep.
can train your brain to where the same endorphins are released. And so now every day it's not like, man, I got to get up and grind. It is like, man, I get to get up and I get to do exactly what I'm called to do every single day. And I get to not only, our kids are going to reach a point when they graduate and they're going to be standing in front of you, Dad, and you're going to say to them, okay, this is the turning point.
Yeah.
You can do anything that you want to do in this life.
Yeah.
And they're going to say one of two things. They're either going to say, Dad, I know. I've watched you every single day. I've watched you love my mom or, your wife. And my son will say, like, I watched you love my mom because I respect her. I never call her my ex. Like, she is my son's mom. We are tied together forever. And the greatest gift that I can give him is in how I treat her.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've watched.
Powerful.
I've watched how you've led our family. I've watched how you have continued to amplify your talents and your skills and the gifts that God's given you and the vision that he's placed inside you of who you can become. And I've watched you fail through it. I've watched you not get it right all the time. And I've watched you continue to show up, even when you take your lumps. Of course, I can do anything and be anything. I've watched you. Or they're going to say, I want to believe you, but you didn't. And now all I know is how to be afraid. And all I know how to do is protect. Richard Rohr says that true spiritual contentment is when there's nothing to prove, nothing to hide, and nothing to protect. And we're going to pass one of those off. We either taught them, there's nothing you need to prove, there's nothing you need to hide, and there's nothing you need to protect. Or I need to do all of those things so that I can insulate myself so that you never know who I really am.
Cody, I love
Pass the offering plate.
love what you're saying. It's so good. And I love that you have really been able to define what success is for you. You just turned 42.
42.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
At what age did you finally get to that point of defining success the way that you currently have? And I'm asking this because I cannot overstate this to people listening. The sooner you define what healthy success looks like in your life, the sooner you'll be doing what you're called to do, having an impact, feeling fulfilled, content. And also, I think when you have that clarity, it just puts you in the right track. People defining success at a young age is I think one of the biggest, most underrated hacks.
Well, and so to be fair, I didn't have anyone speaking that into me. And so I didn't know. And I can tell you that I got into ministry at a young age and loved it. Some of the greatest years of my life. But I didn't know who I was. And as somebody who struggled with affirmation, addiction, and always needed to put out fires, I mean, it was a straight tap to the vein of being able to solve problems, and I was good at it. From the time that I was a kid, my grandmother would always tell me, God's got such a plan for your life. I'm somebody who, respectfully, I didn't struggle in school, did very, very well academically. Did well in music. I was a wrestler. I did well in sports. And I always had a pretty good head on my shoulders, I believe, from the way that I was raised. I was raised primarily by my grandparents, and I think when you have a generation skipped, it's just a different kind of work ethic. It's a different way that you create ingenuity and discipline in your life. And I modeled a lot of my life after my grandfather, who was up before 4 a.m. reading his Bible every morning, and I do this. It works for me now. And so you create all of that, but then the frustration hits that, like, I'm not in an arrogant way, but a lot of things come really naturally to me. And I'm pretty good at most things. I'm 5'6", so don't put me on your basketball team. But
you had to have some shortcoming.
Well, here we are. I've got more.
I mean, he couldn't have made you perfect.
No, I've got more. This can be a long podcast. But you go through all that, and so then there's a lot of fear around, like, I don't want to choose the wrong thing.
Right.
I don't want to do the wrong thing. I don't know that I'm supposed to do this thing because I'm also good at this thing.
Yep.
And so it creates kind of a paralysis by analysis.
The tension,
and so
yeah.
Then you walk through and I'm in ministry and I'm doing all the right things. The stress is a little overwhelming because I don't want to disappoint everyone. And I'm in very high capacity churches and I'm in very high pressure scenarios. And I could do it, but it required all of this work and all this work. And ultimately, I believe that's probably what cost me my marriage is I married the wrong woman. I married the church. And because when your job is God and God's your job, you don't really know how to balance it because I was never taught how to. And I was never taught to define what success is for me. So I went off the metrics of what success was placed in front of me. And I'll tell you that I probably didn't really fully step into what I defined as success for myself. Because when I got into business in like 2016, 17, I then started modeling off of entrepreneurship and deeper levels of leadership, which had already been prevalent because of, like John Maxwell and Andy Stanley in the church. Because we went through a period of time where things became very leadership centric in the church, Craig with Life Church. And so everything became that model. And then I get into the business world and I find very quickly that I have a high acumen for solving problems in the business infrastructure because business and church translated very seamlessly to me, right? Like church, Sunday mornings are your top of funnel. Then we get somebody to a CTA, which means they raise their hand. Then we get them on a recurring subscription, which is their tithe.
Wow.
Then we create an affiliate program, which is getting them plugged into bringing people to church. So then we have to create special events and conferences and things, just like in the business world, to then attract new people into the community, get them on the same retainer, which is a tithe. And in the midst of that, then we want to create community so that we have a higher retention rate. So then we create community groups, which for us is small groups or pods.
Right.
And so it all kind of made sense to me. And
that makes sense when you say it, but I think that's just the uniqueness of your brain. Because that
Could be.
I don't know that I know a lot of pastors, leaders that would articulate that exactly like you just did.
And so
feels like part of the wiring.
You hope that it's ethical, right, and it's stewarded effectively.
Should be, yeah.
And that's always the prayer and the hope. And again, you should be able to tie that to the fruit of the organization, not just a size or a dollar amount or the extravagance of the community, but the generosity and the ways that they're stewarding that effectively towards kingdom-minded vision here on earth as in heaven. That to say, get into business, start doing well. And then it is, okay, well, I need the right watches. I need to dress the right way. I do need the right car. And it wasn't really probably until I was 38. And I met Sarah. And I was really able to, on the backside of creating enough stability for myself, that I recognized some of this stuff doesn't bring me life.
Mm-hmm.
I want to drive what I want to drive. I don't care how you judge it. I want to dress how I want to dress because how I dress does not affect the outcome of what I can produce. So I want to be comfortable in my own skin. I want to feel confident in what I wear. Now, can I wear a custom suit? Sure, I've got a dozen of them. Yeah, love it. Absolutely, when it calls for it. And also, there is something incredibly liberating. And if that's your jam, and supercars are your jam, and big houses and summer houses and lake houses and oceanfront house. If all that's your jam, cool. I have no qualms with it. I just know what it is to define success for myself.
Yep.
And for me, living simply, not living extravagantly, being able to be incredibly generous because, man, and that's my wife's heart as well. And she is one of the kindest, gentlest, but don't mess with her because she's German. People, and she's been, I could not have prayed or made a list that would fully encompass all the ways that she blesses me every single day. She is a true reflection of God's grace in my life. And when you get to that place where there is nothing to prove, how to protect, and there's nothing that you, and I can also understand where you might say, well, yeah, but that's on the backside of creating the success. Sure. I wish I would have had enough confidence and awareness earlier because I think exponentially could have done even more because I would have been confident just in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe being able to reflect and look at my family and to see a woman who loves me for me, not what I produce, but celebrates the ways that God is using me, and kids who could care less about the stuff and care less about all the things. You know, you can make a lot of money and you can think that love in your head is buying all these things for your kids that you never had, because when you grew up, money was always scarce, and it's why dad drank. It's why mom was always crying in the kitchen, and you thought that's never going to be me. And so you go make money, and then you buy your kids things that they don't need, and you wonder why they're disconnected from you and distant from you. It's because you actually, you completed the cycle. You're doing it again because what you actually needed was just healthy, loving, present parents together who were fighting through that frustration in a healthy way to show you what safety could look like and what love and provision could look like, even when things were tight, even when it was, you know, mac and cheese in a plastic bowl, and it was toast and cinnamon and sugar. If you've ever, might be
100%. You just made me hungry.
Yeah, I know. That's what they actually needed.
Yeah.
And so when you can frame it from that place, well, then everything that you're building just becomes a reflection of the gratitude that you have for what God is doing in your life. And it doesn't become about the flex, because respectfully, nobody cares, because they're all too busy trying to reflect their own version of success to you. Everyone's trying to be impressive. So I have found that when you can go from a here I am personality, which is I think probably what rubs you the wrong way in a lot of circumstances, and me too.
Yeah, probably true. Yeah.
But I also understand it, you know, to there you are. It changes everything, because now that it doesn't have to reflect me.
Yeah.
Because I know who I am.
Yep.
I don't need to answer questions about me. I don't need to tell you what I do. If you want to know, I'm happy to tell you, but I don't need to prove anything. So tell me about you. Tell me about what's on your heart. Tell me about where God's moving. Tell me where you feel stuck. Tell me where you feel broken and isolated. Tell me why you feel like this life isn't worth living anymore.
Yeah. Cody, this is a perspective that so many of us need. I truly hope that if you're listening to this podcast, you can step back and do the simple work, because it really is simple.
Yeah.
When you really strip it all back, we tend to want to make things complex.
Well, that justifies why we are where we are.
Yeah.
It gives us an excuse. And make no mistake, simple isn't easy.
No.
If it were easy, then everyone would do it. If it were easy, then it wouldn't require faith. And faith is the baseline by which we live and move and have our being. And so there has to be, you know, just like when Peter stepped out, he didn't step out. Jesus didn't call him out and then he calmed the waters. He called him out in the midst of waves crashing around him. And it was never because Peter wasn't obedient. It was because he took his eyes off of Jesus and he started focusing on the storm around him, not recognizing that the one who called him out was the one who controlled the storm. So recognize, even if you're in the middle of a storm right now and you don't understand what's next. I mean, even think of Moses when he's leading his people out of captivity and they take a step. And it was when they took the step that the sea parted. And you have to think that's a scary place to be, because you don't know what's on the other side. You can't see what's on the other side. And I often believe that there was a miracle in that mist, because it had to be full of just mist and everything else. Because if you would have seen the walls of water around you, you would have been paralyzed in fear. And so oftentimes when things feel cloudy or things feel dissonant, or you don't really know where you're headed, but you know what that next right step is, God is often protecting you in a lack of clarity so that you don't get overwhelmed by the magnitude of what surrounds you. And so my consideration would be, in the midst of all of that, what is that next step? Is it apology? Is it a date night? Is it putting a bottle down and getting accountability? Is it partnering with a mentor or a coach? Is it sitting down with your pastor? Is it going to a therapist? What is that next right step? And then from there, we build a little confidence because we took the step. And we say, like we cold plunge. And the first time my son got in both my boys got in the water, jumped right back out. You're like, I can go deeper. Then it was 3 steps, then 4 steps, and then it's to their neck. And then it's sitting for 30 seconds, and then it's sitting for a minute. Because once you take that first step, you recognize I don't necessarily know what I was so afraid of in the first place. But it takes the courage to step in what you've never known and what you've never done and what you haven't seen with your own eyes to say, God, I may not know what's on the other side of this, but I have faith enough to recognize that you are good and you have a plan and you have chosen me because you created me. And so I'm going to take that next right step. And in that, I have the faith that you have a grace that even if I trip, you're going to catch me, and I'm going to continue walking forward, because that is the race that we are called to run.
It's beautiful. I think what you're talking about at the end of the day is, what does it mean to live a life of surrender?
Yeah.
What does it mean to lay yourself down, to lay your life down, to be Christ-like in what you're doing? These frameworks today have been so helpful.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, and Jesus felt that tension of being fully autonomous, yet guided by the Spirit, of recognizing that God has a plan and my Father will see this through. I am the way, the truth, and the light. And also, I'm fully human. And if there's any other way, it's a tension that even our Savior was clearly accustomed to.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if you've been listening today, I really want to encourage you to take some time, play this back, sit with some of the questions, sit with yourself, reprioritize some things in your life that maybe are out of whack and you've been trying to figure out how to get out of the funk that you're in, or how to get unstuck, or how to get out of the familiar. Cody, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. I just feel like there's so much transformation that's going to come from this episode. And transparently, that's my heart with this entire podcast. But if you're listening to this, do not sit on this. Go put it to work. Go put it to practice. Define that success for your life, and make it yours. Be comfortable in who you are. Own that. Man, I appreciate you so much. You are truly a brother, and you're truly somebody that I respect and I look up to. And kind of, I was going to say not physically, but we're about the same height, so I can't even talk trash on that level. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Just insert short jokes. Cody and Cody under 5'8", that's who we are. So we're here for you. Yeah. We'll come and champion you, but we will not be on your basketball team.
We'll bring a ladder. We'll bring a ladder.
We'll bring a ladder. Dude, thank you so much, bro, for taking the time. I love you so much, man.
Love you.